So, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where you're watching from, but that's just me greeting everyone. So, guys, if you're on the channels, please go ahead to drop a message on your individual channel so you have others remember and join in for this particular class. You already have your instructor on the call. Hi, Ian. Ian is already on the call. He'll be taking today's class. Ian is a software engineer from Philadelphia, and he'll be taking your class for this evening. So I don't take much time. Let me just step back and yeah, and the class is over to you. But then one more thing, guys, remember you can always drop your questions in the chat as he teaches. If you have any questions, drop it. I would do well to highlight so that Ian would see your question and respond to it either during the class or at the end of his class. Thank you.
All right, cool. Welcome everyone. You could put your name and where you're calling in from in the chat. Um, but I'll get started. So today we're going over the basic stuff you need to do to make a website. Um, okay, so a little bit about me. I've been coding since I was 11 or 12, about 6 years. Um, I've worked at four companies doing software development, and a few months ago I co-founded Chat ARV, where we're making real estate software, and that's done pretty well. So yeah, if you're interested in startups, you can ask me about that. All right, so first, how does the web work? On the web, clients request content from a server by sending an HTTP request. So they might request, I want to see the homepage of Google, whatever. It's going to, first look up what is google.com, what IP address is that, like where is that server located, and then it's going to go, find the nearest server and get that client. And then the clients can send, now I want to search for how to learn how to code. And then the server is going to respond back like that. So HTTP stands for Hypertext Transport Protocol, and HTTPS stands for like secure HTTP. It's encrypted. So without HTTPS, someone in between could see what content is being sent to the server. With HTTPS, someone in between can only see what IP address of the server is being requested and nothing else. All right, so here there's different methods for HTTP because we request different things. So when you go to a website, you're having a GET request for that website's content. And then when you may say make a post on like Twitter, then you're sending a post request to the server. So those are the most common ones. Post is used to send stuff, and get is used to get stuff. And post can like send a much larger amount of data to the server, like even uploading files and stuff. And then we have other ones like head is if you want to see like the first response that the server would give without getting all the content. Put is to deposit data, like sending a very small amount of data. Patch is to make a small modification. Delete is for deleting. Trace, and options, I've never really used that. But most commonly get and post, and you can kind of use post for all this other stuff sometimes, depending on the situation. So what is HTML? HTML is a language that we use to describe what should be displayed on a page. So for example, HTML might say this page should have a title of what is HTML, and that title is going to be in the browser tab. The page should have a top heading of what is HTML, and that heading is displayed at the top of the page. This page should have subheadings of introduction, HTML tags, and learning CSS, and each of them should have some specific text under them in a paragraph format. So if you want to make a web page with that, you use HTML. So what does HTML look like? Each HTML tag has a caret, and we put some name of the tag in between, and then we do /tag. So HTML is like derived from a language called XML that you don't really need to know about. Each file starts with this thing that says doctype HTML to tell the computer that you're sending HTML, because you can send other things from a server. Like you could open up a page, you could just get an image from the server. Like when you click and open an image in your tab, then that's not HTML. But almost everything you get on the web these days is HTML, and it's going to start with that. Tags start like caret tag and end like caret/tag. Each file always has these tags. HTML wraps everything except for doctype HTML. Head wraps everything that describes the page, like it might tell what files the page needs to load, like to get certain styles and stuff on the page. It might tell how the page should be styled, how it should look, how what title should be displayed for the page in the browser navigation, and stuff like that. Here we have a meta tag. A lot of websites use a lot of these. This one's just saying that we're gonna be like sending characters in like a certain format, but yeah. And then body wraps everything that describes what is on the page. So that's stuff like just everything on the page. So all the specific text you want to display and everything like that is going to be displayed with the body. So here's some HTML tags we use in the head. We have like head, we have the title. Titles get displayed in the tab on your browser. Meta char set equals UTF-8 is like just how to process the content. You don't really need it, but you can add it. This is a link to a CSS style sheet, and we'll go over how that works later, but that's saying like how things should be styled. So like HTML says that there should be a heading that says like my name is Ian, and CSS says that that heading should be blue and it should be small, stuff like that. Here's some common body HTML tags. Body heading H1 means heading 1. P is paragraph. IMG stands for image, and it always needs a src, which has the image source. Span, this is like as kind of just like anything to separate the, like in a new tag, a span can have anything in it. And when you have a span, it's not gonna have a break. So this image would display right next to the span, and the text would just be on like the right of the image as long as there's space. That probably doesn't make sense right now, but it will later. H2 is heading 2, and these headings go all the way up to 6. So I'm going to put this editor in the chat so you can kind of experiment a little bit with HTML and follow along throughout the rest of the lesson. All right, here's more common HTML tags. There's hundreds of them you can use, to display videos or lists or like dividers or collapsible information or whatever you want to display. But here's some of the most common. So H1, H2, H3, all the way to H6 are headings, and they're kind of in order of importance. So it's recommended that you always start with H1 and then go go down for each subheading. Even if you think like H1 looks too big, you still use H1 and you just make the text smaller with CSS, which we'll get to later. So UL is unordered list, OL is ordered list, and LI is list item. So since HTML tags always go inside of other tags, LI goes inside of UL or OL. And then div is a section or a divider. And it's not really a divider, it's a section you can put other stuff in. It's kind of like span, you can put anything in it. But when you make a div, by default, like it creates a new section on the page instead of going right next to it on the right and wrapping. And div is by far the most common like HTML tag that's actually used. Because div can help you make very advanced layouts. href equals /link or a link to another website. This is a hyperlink. It's just a link that you click on. Technically, A is an anchor tag, but we don't really use anchors anymore, or ever since I was born. So we only ever use A with the href with a link. All right, so here you can create your first page. It kind of looks like this. So HTML, and you have /HTML on the end. Head, and you have /head on the end. Body, and you have /body on the end. And then inside you have H1 about you, UL, and then you have a fact about you, fact 2, fact 3. So if you could, I would open up the link I sent in the chat and try to take a minute or two to try to make a page like this in there, and then let me know if you have any questions. Oh shoot, I didn't
So Ian, I don't think there are no questions currently in the chat.
yeah. Well, I was trying to give them the editor.
Oh yeah, I can see the link. I'll post it in the chat.
Yeah, I can't post for some reason. Sorry,
Alright, no
guys.
problem.
So anyways, I have a little HTML editor, and once you get it, you can try to make a page about yourself, like this. And let me know if you have any questions. So when you open up the editor, you'll see this is a heading, and this is a paragraph, and then you should rename those to something you want, type something else. Then you'll see a title, page title, /title, and that, if this were like a page, since this is inside of a page inside of a page, you're not going to see anything. But if it was a separate page, then you'll see, you would see that like in the browser. And then you should try adding this unordered list and 3 facts about yourself. And make sure you click run above to see your changes. All right, if no one has any questions, then I'll move on. All right. If you have any questions, feel free. Please, I'd love to pause and answer them. But if not, we'll keep going. So what is CSS? If HTML tells the computer what should be displayed, CSS tells the computer how it should be displayed. I misspelled that. So if HTML tells the computer what should be displayed, what I meant to write is CSS tells the computer how it should be displayed, like if it should be red or blue, or should have a background, or should have spacing underneath it, or should be in a different font. Each HTML tag in the body can be given a class or ID, like a class equals link, ID equals Google link, href equals google.com, and then we put Google, and we make a link to Google. So now if I want to make it red, I can do so using the class. I can just do dot class, and it might be a little bit confusing, but in CSS, color means text color, and then background dash color means background color. Or I can also select it by ID. So hashtag Google link, color is red. Or I can do it by tag type. So I can do it by A. And I can style all A's in the document. So one thing to be clear on is classes could be anything. So you might have a like class that says border, and then everything that's class border gets like a border the way you want it, whether it's a link or a button or some other kind of thing. So class can be a bunch of things. ID should only ever be one element. Only one element in the whole website should have that same ID. So if you're selecting by ID with the hashtag ID, then you're only styling one thing in the document. And if you're styling by tag type, then you're making all A's red. So you're making all links red. Yeah. So someone asked for a quick recap. So we're doing I can't post this link, but there's a link above for an editor. You can open the editor and see what HTML looks like. So if we take, so HTML is a language by which we can make a website. So this is a very simple website. It's within the website we are using to edit, but it is a website. So title is the title. It'll be in the browser. You can say hello world. And then in HTML, we have a opening tag, and we have a closing tag for everything. So we do tag, and then we do slash tag. But we can't just do tag and slash tag. They have to actually have names that describe what they are. So head is where we determine things about what the website should be, like what its official title is. And then body is where we actually say what should be displayed on the website. And then everything in body is contained within body, and then we do slash body when we're done with that section. And the same with all the other sections. So hey, so we can just edit it here. We can say whatever we want, and then I was asking people to make a list. So we can make a list. And then it's going to have an error if we don't close the list, so we have to close the list. So yeah, see if you can go make a website like that, everyone. All right, and then moving on from HTML, CSS tells the computer instead of what should be displayed, it says how it should be displayed. And we can select by class, ID, or tag type. All right, so here's the most common CSS selectors. Like I just said, ID is here, hashtag the ID. By class, dot the class, or by tag. If you're selecting by tag, like div, A, H1, H2, you don't need to put anything before it. You just write that, and then you do the brackets and select. So you can just do A, bracket, color, colon, red, and then semicolon. So each, in CSS, we have a selector, we have brackets, and we have the property name here, and we have the property value here, separated by a colon and a semicolon. Let me know if you have any questions. Do you have to use every tags? Do I have to use tags every time? It depends what you mean exactly. For you can elaborate a little bit in the chat if you want, but for this, you always need to have, whenever you want to put something on a page, you always have to have an opening tag and a closing tag, and you have to describe what that is. So if I want to add a paragraph here, I say P, this is another paragraph, and then I do /B. So you always need a tag for that. If we're talking about CSS, we can use a tag and then say what we want all those tags to be, or we can use an ID and say what we want that one element with that ID to be. We want it to be red. Or we can use a class and say what do I want all elements with that class to be. So if we demonstrate in here, we can say P class equals important paragraph, and then we can write CSS here for now, style/style. This goes in the head because it's describing what we want the page to be like. And then we want important paragraph to be red. So now it's red. So you can try something like that. Use a style tag in the head. Style tags can also go in the body, but it's not as proper. Yeah. And then if we want all paragraphs to be blue, we can do that. But because this one is more specific, it's ignoring that and making it red instead. But if we want all paragraphs to have a black background, now all paragraphs have a black background, and this paragraph is still red. So we can do stuff like that. If anyone has any questions, let me know. All right. So here's the most common CSS selectors. There's a lot more. Like if we wanted to if we wanted to select only links that include, Google in the URL, we could probably do that. But usually you want to use one of these. You either want to give an element an ID and select that. You want to give elements a class and select those, or you want to select elements with a certain kind of tag. All right, so here's the most common CSS styles. So we have color is the text color, background color is background color, padding is the padding around an element, margin is the space around an element. We'll go over that in a minute. Border creates borders. The border property is a little bit complex because you have to do Yeah, for HTML, our tags like the most fundamental thing to learn. Yeah, that's our best starting point, because without tags, then we can't without tags we can't tell the computer, what should be on the page. Like, should the page, if we want a page to talk about my dog, the first thing I have to start with is like a paragraph about my dog in a p tag. P is for paragraph. And you don't need to memorize all the HTML tags. You can just look them up or use ChatGPT. No, there's no universal representation of various IDs. Yeah, you just have to type one and be consistent with it. So again, an ID is for like, and yeah, these are arbitrary. You can just name them whatever you want. So ID, it could be ID1. It could be, the ID could be like starting element, or I don't know, something. So an ID is only for one element. Only one element can have that ID. And a class is as many elements can have that ID. And remember, if you don't remember something after the class, you can Google, YouTube, ChatGPT. So background color is background color, padding is padding, margin is margin, border and box shadow creates shadows. The border and the box shadow are a little more complicated to go over here, because you need to be able to tell what color is the border, what style is it, and how big is it, and kind of similar things with shadows. So we're not going to go over it right now, but you can look those up. So when we have here, content is the basic thing. Everything needs to fit the content. Padding is the box around the content. So if I make important paragraphs red, and then I also make them light red is not a thing, and then I make them background blue, then if I add padding of 5 pixels, then this whole thing is going to have a padding around it, including the background part. If I wanted a margin around it of also 5 pixels, that's going to add space around it. It might have been too subtle, so 20 pixels. Now you can kind of see there's a margin around it. It doesn't take up the extra space. And if I do leave width, if I do width equals fit content, now it won't take up the whole thing. So how did I know what to do? I do have it memorized because I've done it so much, but you don't need to memorize anything. You can ask ChatGPT, how do I, in HTML, if I have a background here, you can even paste your whole code in. You can say, why is the thing, taking up the full width, and what do I do about it? And it'll tell you width fit content. Cool. Any questions? How is margin different from padding? Yeah. So here, let's demonstrate by increasing both of them. So let's say I make padding 500. I have this whole thing around it. Let's tone it back down to 100. So I have this whole thing around it. Let's make margin 100. Now, like it still added more stuff around it, but it didn't include the background as part of that stuff. So padding makes the whole element like bigger, including the background. Margin makes the whole area around the element bigger, including the background. And what this is getting into is everything in HTML and CSS is a box. So all boxes can be moved around, can get margin or padding around them, can have a border, can be moved and positioned where you want them to. but everything is styled as a box. And even if it doesn't look like a box, it might just be a box with rounded corners or a specific shape. But the browser treats it as a box. All right, so don't forget the tools you have to use. We have Google, we have Claude, we have ChatGPT. I don't expect you to remember everything from the class. Um, and so you should be like using these tools to help you and to help practice outside of class. Um, and I should have included YouTube. There's all kinds of videos you can watch for completely free. You don't have to pay for a course. And yeah, so don't forget your tools. Um, Obviously, be a little careful with AI that you're not just copying the entire thing from AI. If ChatGPT, if you ask ChatGPT for a solution and the solution's like way above your head, you don't understand what it just did, then you can ask it. Another important tool is the inspect element thing, and you'll have to watch a YouTube video on this or something because I can't go over the whole thing right now. But we'll try to go over a little bit of it. So for example, if we take inspect element, we usually start with, first of all, how I got here. Right click, inspect. So we usually start up here in the top left with this, and we can look at something. So here, it's a little bit jumbled to do it inside of this editor because we see all of their code for the actual editor itself. And then in here, we see hashtag document, and everything in here is our code, if you can see there. So head has our head in it, and we can see all the code is exactly as we wrote it. And then here, in inspect element, we can edit our code. It's not going to go edit the website itself. So I can go to Google now and inspect element and change Google's text to something else. Obviously, it's not changing Google itself. It's just changing Google for just you in your browser in this session of inspect element. But if I want to take here, first of all, let's make another paragraph important. All right, and then, whoa, where did my inspect element go? I can just, inspect the thing I want to see again. So here, I can make styles for an element that override the other styles. So let's say I want it to be no margin again. Now, just for this, just temporary, without saving anything, I just did it and saw how it looks. Or maybe I want to edit this thing. So this one is for all important paragraphs. So maybe the blue is too dark. So I'm going to make it very, very subtle. And you can see this here is called a hex code. It's a numeric representation of a color. So, CSS has hundreds of colors you can just type in, like blue, sky blue, light blue, turquoise blue, whatever. But at some point you're going to run out and you're not going to have all the colors you want. So hex gives you literally any color you can imagine. So we can do all these colors with hex codes. And when we go and inspect element and change stuff under a class, it changes everything for that class. And when we change it here, it changes just that element. So this can kind of help you troubleshoot stuff. And then when you move on later, you'll use stuff like, oh, what's here and stuff. But right now, all you really need is this part and this part. And just use it to test out different styles and such. Any questions so far? Put them in the chat and I'll let you know. All right. One thing we also have to cover that might be a little bit too advanced for today, but we'll cover it. It's called Flexbox. So when you're making all these things and positioning them, the way use ID for color, how to use ID to do that. So yeah, you can use in CSS, let's get an image of a CSS syntax. So we have that's a good image. We have a selector and we have a declaration. And inside the declaration can be multiple properties with values. So to change the text size, you simply use any of the selectors. In this case, important paragraph selects everything that has class important paragraph, and then font size says the font size. And how did I know to use font size and not like text size or make text larger? I just have it memorized because I've done it for years. But you can just look all these up. How to increase font size CSS. And now you'll see it here. And you'll see an example of how to use a selector and a declaration. And here's just some of all of the selectors you can do. You can see it's very powerful. Hi, welcome. That will be recording too if you missed some of the first part and showed up a little late. So what is Flexbox? Flexbox lets us position things in new ways and in different ways and stuff like being right next to each other. So here you can see this page probably has at least 2 kinds of flex boxes because these cards need to be positioned right next to each other with a little bit of space in between. And these avatars with their like description of their name also need to be positioned right next to each other. And then I don't have a screenshot of it, but when we shrink this page, these things are going to collapse on top of each other. So it'll go from here to here. And that's something Flexbox is good at as well. So here's another Flexbox, because we definitely need this one to be right next to this one. There are some other ways to do it, but Flexbox is the best way to do it. Now there's something called absolute positioning, where you like tell an element exactly where it should be on the screen, even if it's like over something else. So I'll just show. So for here, I only want to do it to one thing, so I can make an ID of other paragraph. And I'm going to copy this ID and I'll do position absolute top 0. And now it's moved to the top of the page and the leftmost of the page. It's not all the way there because of the margin it has, but if we took away the margin, then it would be. But this is not recommended because obviously, even though, say I'm like, oh, I want it here, right? Then I might put it all the way to the right. I don't feel like you have to memorize these things right now. I'm just demonstrating. I might be like, oh, that's how I wanted it. I wanted it over here. But, when I make the page smaller, then we're not even going to be able to see the text anymore. So as developers, we always want to consider every scenario and particularly every screen size. So that's why absolute positioning is usually not a good idea, but not always. So anyways, if we can't absolutely position and tell something exactly where it needs to be, flexbox is usually what we want to use for stuff when we need things side by side, and when we need things in a grid, stuff like that. Here's another example. We have the YouTube navigation bar. We want to space these things evenly throughout, and particularly between the icon and the search bar, and between the mic and the create button, we want to have a little bit extra space. So if my screen was wider than this, there would be extra space that goes here, and if my screen's smaller, this extra space can shrink, because it's flexible. And then here we have another example. We have the image, and we want to position these things to the right of the image. So I'm not really going to teach Flexbox in this course, but I wanted to watch a quick video to kind of reinforce more how it works, so you can kind of just get the introduction, even if you aren't able to. Yeah. Is the audio working or no? Oh, let me know if the audio is not working.
Um, I can't hear the audio for the video, Ian,
Okay. Um, what I'll
but I
do,
can see that it is.
there's no caption, so I'll just let it play and I'll explain kind of how it works. So in Flexbox, can do things in we can flex in a column wise or in a row. Usually we end up doing it in a row. We can put things in the box, and they'll be right next to each other. Um, and there's a cross one and a main one. Usually things are going to start on the top left unless we set it differently. As we add things into the flex box, they're going to put it here. And then, we get our main size, and then we can put it main. And then we can have different settings. So maybe we want things to spread out, even if they don't need that much space. So we do that. If we want something to use up twice as much space as other things in the flex box, we can set it to 2 and the others to 1. We can justify content to make it space between, space evenly, etc. Flex end. And we can do align items, does the vertical adjustment, and justify content does the horizontal adjustment. So if we want everything centered, then we have to use both of them, which is a pretty common use case for Flexbox. If we do flex direction column, which is kind of rare, everything else just flips, so then you end up using the other things. How do you know when to use Flexbox? Whenever you want to show, whenever you want to position things in a way that you find hard to do, and you might not get to that point today, but for example, I went through some examples here. So for example, if we want to position an image on the left and a text on the right, and keep the text centered, relevant with regard to the image, kind of keep the text centered. We can't really do that with what we learned today. We would use Flexbox, and that's why it's a powerful thing to learn, because there's a lot of scenarios like that. If you go to any website's nav bar, they don't just put logo, search, create, notify, avatar in one section. They try to spread it out through the thing, and they might let search bar take up a lot of space, and then the area to the left of the search bar and to the right of the mic take up a lot of space, and then the other parts spaced differently. So with Flexbox, you have a lot of control over how things are spaced as the screen gets bigger and smaller. Yeah, they'll help make it responsive if you use it correctly. You could also use it incorrectly and make it even less responsive. So if anyone made a website during the class, like about yourself, like I said to do here, just make it simple about yourself like this. You can post your code in the chat and I can take a look at it. Because we're just about done what we had to cover today. So here I can try and tell a little bit more about Flexbox. So here's another, good image about how Flexbox can be helpful. So Flex start, we're all gonna start in the top, or Flex end. At the end, we can center things, we can stretch them so they take up all the space. And then we can do space between, so they have the maximum space between each item, horizontal or vertically. We can do space around, which is kind of like space between, but you also want space on the top and bottom, or the left and right of the Flexbox. So yeah, we're about done for today, but if you put your code in the chat, like a basic website like this, where you can tell something about yourself, I'd love to take a look at it. In the meantime, I'll give a small demonstration of Flexbox. So if we want to use a image, we can do copy image address, and img src equals image, alt equals a description of the image, and we can do slash. So there we go. We can do width and height. And then we want to say use Google. Okay, cool. But I want this centered. So I want it to be like aligned with the logo. And we can't actually do that easily. When we can't do it with CSS because it's a style. And we can't do it without wrapping it in something else just because of there needs to be some context in which we make something aligned. That might not make sense, but so we have a div, we wrapped it, it didn't change anything. You're wrapping stuff with a div, it can change stuff, but not by default. And just to demonstrate between div and span, we use, if I change this to div, now the use Google falls underneath, but it's not going to matter once we add a Flexbox. So I'm going to make a class called ENFlex. Hasn't changed anything yet until I add what style. And I'm going to do display equals flex. Oh, I see it, yeah. Let me open another editor. Cool. What do I do? Product design. So ordered list. Oh, here's the problem here. So sorry, it got out of format, so it's quite hard to see. Most code editors have a format thing, but this one is pretty basic. So this stands for ordered list. You actually need everything in the ordered list is you need everything to have this list item tag. So now, since it's an ordered list and it's a list item, it'll be one, another list item could be graphic design. And then we'll have 1, 2, and it'll keep counting. If we want an unordered list, by default, that means bullet points, and we'll have bullet points. Cool. So as you can see, even though your code was not quite correct because it didn't have the list item things, HTML still rendered it, adjusted it a little bit differently. So yeah, HTML tends to be pretty forgiving in that sense. All right, if you have any questions on that, let me know. Otherwise, here we have display flex, and we have I don't remember off the top of my head. Might be line item center. Oh, it is. But you don't need to memorize any of these. You can ask ChatGPT. You can ask Google. And that's not what I thought it was. So now you can see it's there and it's centered because I wrapped everything in flex and then I had those two things. If I okay, so when we're doing by default, we're in flex direction row, even though I didn't type it out. Yeah, li is for each element in the list is wrapped with that, and ul or ol is for the whole list. Okay, so flex direction row, that's just default. I don't even need to write it, doesn't change anything, but it is what we are doing now. And then if the flex direction is row, then align items is for the vertical space, and justify content is for the horizontal space. It's kind of confusing, isn't it? Align and justify are just like synonyms, but so if we want to justify content center, it'll be centered. Or maybe instead of centering, and centering is basically including as much extra space to the sides as possible, maybe we want to include as much extra space in between. Or maybe we want to include as much space as possible in every open section. So we can do stuff like that. Maybe we want to keep it how it was before, but add a 4-pixel gap. Now we add a gap. Maybe we want a 40-pixel gap. So there you can see very brief demonstration of Flexbox. It gives you a lot more control over the basic layout of stuff. And yeah, that's it for today. One more thing I didn't mention. px is the most common measurement. It's pixels. You can measure by, font sizes. M is the current font size. We don't have any more important paragraphs, so that didn't do anything. But the point is there are other units that you can use. So now we can see that an M is pretty big because it's based on the font size. So if the font size is 16 pixels, it's equivalent to like 1,000 pixels, 1,600. So there's some other stuff we can use. We can do it based on the viewport height. So 10 BH is 10% of the viewport height. But yeah, but when you're starting out, I would probably stay with pixels. Does anyone have any more questions?
Hi, Ian. I think I saw some questions from earlier on in the class. I just would
Yeah.
displayed on the screen. Let me know if you have already answered them.
Cool. Do I have to use tags every time? Yeah, I think I answered that. Um,
Okay.
you have to use, it's kind of like, it depends what you meant exactly. You do need tags every time you want to create like something separate on the page. So, if I just want to add another sentence, I can do it within the same tag. But if I want to have another paragraph, and we'll take that off. If I want to have another paragraph, then I do need another tag. So you have to use tags every time you want to add a different kind of thing to the website. However, whenever you want to style a part of the website differently, that's for CSS. Anything else?
Okay. So I think also look at this.
Yeah. Yeah, li is for each element in the list. Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. So we can have ul is for unordered list, ol is for ordered list, and then inside of those we put the list. Anything else?
Okay. I also think that this person was trying to show the code
Oh
they're
yeah,
writing, but the
yeah.
comment section didn't take everything.
I put their code in. Yeah, it was almost correct, but they forgot about the li part.
Oh, okay. All right then. Okay. I think did you answer this? I'm just
Yeah,
going through the comments again.
yeah. I answered that.
Okay.
You want to use Flexbox to have more control over how the layout looks. So stuff when you want one thing next to other and you want them spread out or centered in certain ways, that's when you use Flexbox.
Okay. All right then. So guys, if you still have any more questions, please go ahead and drop them in the chat so that Ian can take it. And before we call it a night or afternoon or morning, whatever time it is, just go ahead and drop your questions. We have like I'll give you 1 minute to do that. So thank you so much, Ian, for coming to this session. It's nice to have you again in
Yeah,
another cohort. So okay. I think you also answered this right, this particular question here. Um, did you answer this? I'm just running through it one more time so that I'm sure
yeah,
I'm not missing anything.
yeah,
And this as well.
yeah.
Okay. All right, then I think
Why
that's
Flexbox? Someone asked why
that.
Flexbox. It's when we
Yeah.
want to position things in a certain way. So if you see here, I have, if I just want them to be next to each other, I can do it without Flexbox. I can have them under each other like that or with span. I can have them, next to each other. But if I want the use Google to be like centered and look like it's like text and a logo, um, in that case, I want to use Flexbox so I can center it how I want. I can space it how I want. I can Flexbox. There are some other ways to center things, but Flexbox, always works for Objectify content. Flexbox always works for centering things. So it's just things when you realize you can't do something without Flexbox, then you use Flexbox. Anything else?
Okay, I can't see anything else. I think that's the last question we have here.
All right, cool. Thank you guys for coming.
So if there are no more, yeah, thank you too for having us.
Are there
So I
alternatives to
think the
Flexbox?
class is going.
Yeah, I'll answer this
You
question. Are
said?
there alternatives to Flex? Someone asked, are there alternatives to Flexbox? Um, there
Oh,
is. Obviously, you can or it's not obvious, but you can just, do a lot of things without Flexbox and just with like normal styling. Um, you can do all kinds of things like adding margins and padding and sometimes centering things without Flexbox. And then there is one alternative to Flexbox called CSS Grid that you might learn about a little bit later. And that's for things that are more dependent on a grid layout, like there's nothing I can pull up right now that makes sense, but it's when we want to have like things in a grid, um, like a table or something. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for coming.
so I think, yeah. So that's all. If there are any questions, you can go ahead and drop it in the group, and I might possibly convince Ian to come back another day for that. Well, I think for now this is all we have. So thank you so much once again for this class. Really
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you.
you. So good night, guys. You can go ahead and fill your attendance form. So bye, Ian. Talk later.
All right, bye. Good night.
All right. Have a great day ahead. So guys, you can fill your attendance form is in the chat. I would have a recurring music just play for a while, more like 1 minute to give you more time to fill your attendance form. If you have any more questions, you can go ahead and drop them on the Discord group, and we'll pick it up from there. And we have a session for tomorrow where we get to talk about things happening in tech space. So I believe you should also join that, even whether you're a newbie or not. At least you need to understand your environment you're getting into. That being said, good morning, good night, good afternoon, wherever you're watching this from. Have a great day ahead, basically. Bye, guys.